level. If you can make trade cheaper, if you can get through the structural obstacle of having to carry out trade in a hard currency like the US dollar, you do a lot of good things. You reduce, for example, the amount of hard currency any given central bank actually has to carry, because you potentially could let two countries settle in their domestic currencies, which at the moment are illiquid, but if they were digitized, they would not necessarily be so illiquid, and you could settle on a net basis down the road. Without going into too much detail, it's a huge possibility that can be exercised at different levels, from remittance through to trade settlement, right up to a central bank, the way it manages its operations and allocates its capital. So
this is about development of our region. That's the why we're doing it. Ultimately, we are going to test and learn, and we'll determine whether and to what extent this technology can be used more broadly across our currency union. Nothing ventured, nothing gained.
Financial technology has developed to such an extent that it presents novel solutions to CARICOM's integration and development challenges. The ability of blockchain technology to facilitate interconnected financial ecosystems is particularly compelling. It has the potential to facilitate reduced transaction costs, faster settlement times, and perhaps most importantly for the Caribbean region, a reduction in the dependence on correspondent banking relationships.
If you look at the de-risking problem, the fact that foreign banks have been closing banking services for various banks across the region means that as a region, our nations are becoming more and more financially excluded. And that's a serious problem for trade. It's a problem for remittances, and it's therefore a problem for poverty, it's a problem for growth, and it's a problem for job creation. So once we get to a point where various countries in this region adopt a central bank digital currency, then we can create the Caribbean Settlement Network, which means much like what the multilateral clearing facility of the 1970s and 80s envisioned, the Caribbean Settlement Network will mean that we will be able to settle intra-regional trade and remittance transactions without the use of US dollars, and therefore the de-risking phenomenon will have less of a negative impact on us.
Because the potential advantage of the adoption of digital currencies issued by central banks are so massive, the advantage to efficiencies in the domestic economy and the advantage of it being a condition for the adoption of a Caribbean settlement network, then to move this along is going to require a concerted effort to make all of the stakeholders aware of how tremendous the advantages are, of how important it is to facilitate these international transactions and to make intra-regional currency transactions independent of international correspondent banks. So, and this is why the working group of the Caribbean Settlement Network is so important, because that is our job. Our job is to try to make the case to the different parties involved, including the central banks, including CARICOM, including the heads of governments.
Within CARICOM, the Prime Minister of Barbados has the lead role for the implementation of the Caribbean single market and economy. That's very important in terms of driving the agenda forward and certainly trying to have the implementation of the CSME. Now, that role is particularly crucial, I think, for the success of the CSN and for this initiative. I think that leadership role that the current Prime Minister of Barbados holds could be very beneficial to the success of the CSN if we get the push that it requires from that. Now, I know that from the highest levels in CARICOM there is really now a significant push towards greater regional integration, certainly as it relates to the CSME. As you know, for many years, the CSME has sort of been stuck. We have not made significant progress. I think that the CSN, if we're able to establish this and to implement it, could actually be now that conduit, that catalyst for now getting the CSME back on track to where, as all Caribbean stakeholders, we would like to see it be.
But what I do know is that our population has expectations of us, and that we have expectations of ourselves and where we must be in 4 years' time if we are to be globally, fiscally fit for business. To that extent, we make a determination today as to whether we want to stay stuck in time or whether we want to move forward. Against that background, I announce today that our government will take another step into the future with the empowerment of our people, recognizing that our people want digital money and that our people want the ease and the security of electronic payments, and that as a result, what must happen is face-to-face discussions with urgency. As Martin Luther King said, the fierce urgency of now.